all of our children from all of our communities matter. Yeah, middle-class white folk shouts at me Nazi scum off our streets. How dare you? If you want to look at this through that lens, how dare you? Insignificant compared to what has been done to our children, our nation's children.
Let's jump into this. So we, again, bumped into each other on Saturday afternoon in Manchester city centre. We were at the Save the Children event. We gave speeches about how we need to protect our children. And the surprising thing for me was that was the first time I've been to one of those types of events, and we were protested.
There was a counter protest of some form, wasn't there? I mean, I don't, you know, I'm particular with my words. So first and foremost, I described what we attended as a rally. I think, you know, people who were of a like mind, who could come together in solidarity and share their viewpoints, and that we're right on this, history will judge us, and, you know, and put names to faces, because I'm sure it's the same with you, a lot of the people who support me, and I'm eternally grateful to, it's a name on you know, it's a name on YouTube, or a name on, you know, one of my streams that I do. So I genuinely enjoy meeting people. We are of our generation where would be sent on trains, planes to meetings where we would meet people face to face, and the value of meeting face to face, and I really enjoy giving my time to that when those opportunities arise. So I gave up my Saturday and I went, and I immediately felt uncomfortable because I got off the tram on Exchange Square, and I walked up through the Andale, and I came out and I'm looking, and the counter protest, the first phrase I heard from the counter protesters were Nazi scum off our streets, and it was cut, and I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, I've come to speak at this event, which is about safeguarding children, demanding that we put an end to the horrific industrial scale cover-up of the gang rape of children, you know, of our children, as acknowledged by every politician. And forgetting that, you know, the Labour Party have even acknowledged this now. The Conservatives are leading the crusade. Reform are using this, you know, as one of their key agenda items, because it was on their manifesto at the last general election. And suddenly I've become a Nazi. And I'll tell you what I did. The first thing I did was I walked past everyone, and I went to the Costa Coffee up to Piccadilly, got myself a coffee, and I walked back and I'll be honest, you, part of me said to myself, Roger, go on. You know, before I'd even, you know, and I'm like, no, I can't do that. There are decent people from it, and no, we've got to challenge these people. So I walked in. It was surrounded by police, ring fence by police. So the police are looking at me first of all, wondering why is this brown-faced guy going and standing with the Nazis? Yeah. And I went, and you spoke, others spoke, and in the main, I was so proud. And I'll share with you why. When I first came across a protest of any form around the grooming gangs, it was in Rochdale. I was doing some work in counter-terrorism. The government had sent me to Rochdale for some reason. And it was a Saturday. I was there in the old town hall, and the police had cordoned off what we now know as the EDL. And these were angry men, not just wanting confrontation with the police, but trying to get at families of shoppers and stuff and trying to attack them, and everything had been locked down. And we're not that, you know, and this movement has grown in such a positive way, where the people who stood there, even those who, you know, who perhaps were that 20 years ago, have grown up themselves and have realized that if we genuinely care about children, which is what I believe everyone who we shared a space with did, then we need to come across in a different way, in a more mature way, and we need to win hearts and minds. And of course, the response now to that is these Antifa lot, the counter protesters, because they can see we've matured. We have come to terms with what are our prejudices and what do we really care about. and asked very difficult questions of ourselves,
Mm.
which is why they have a brown-faced Muslim man such as myself front and center of some of this work, is because whatever our differences are, those differences are insignificant compared to what has been done to our children, our nation's children, and we have a responsibility to make that right. And I was so proud of people there, because in the main they didn't react, and the provocation was severe. In the main they didn't react. And at one point, you'd gone up to speak, because I was sat next to you, stood next to you in where there's the hoardings were and stuff, and you'd gone to speak, the railing, sorry. And I looked to one side, and anyone who knows Piccadilly Gardens, you'd know that there's a little play area, for children. And I couldn't help but smile. There was a Muslim girl in a headscarf, happily playing on whatever apparatus was there with her brother. Her mum and dad sat there. And no one from our group, the Nazis, was so much as, they didn't even notice.
Yeah, exactly.
And these people are now, they're desperate to silence us. And that desperation results in a renter mob, essentially a renter mob.
And that's what they were.
Yeah. Shout, and the irony, I get up to speak, and they're shouting Nazi scum off our streets. What is it? But sorry, if you want to racialize this in this way, if you want to politicize this in this way, how dare, 50, 60 white folk, middle class white folk, shout at me Nazi scum off our streets? How dare you? And if you want to look at this through that lens, how dare you?
Yeah.
And of course, I shared with the crowd there, and I'll share again. I know what a swastika is. I didn't see it in a book. I saw it painted on the front door of my house. The first time I saw a swastika was I was 4 years old, 5 years old, and I woke up and I was coming out, and my dad ushered me away, and I'm looking back, and it's a red paint, horrible, painted on the front door. And it was the era when you came home for your lunches. Poor kids came home for lunch. We came home for lunch, and my dad, a suited man, always wore a suit, always wore a tie, his sleeves rolled up, his blazer rolled up and put on the side. And him and my Polish neighbour, a white lad who was of a similar age, the pair of them were scrubbing the Nazi sign off. So how dare you?
And then some of the other things they were shouting, or the signs they were carrying, trans lives matter.
So the trans jihadists, I call them, right? So I look around at them, and there's a Palestinian flag, over here, next to a trans flag, and they're waving away, and I'm like thinking, carry those convictions through them, lads, right? Take that trans flag and go to the next pro-Palestinian march with it, and see what my Pakistani brethren do to you. They'll chase you out the street. You. If you want to wave a trans flag, wave a trans flag, because I come and I'm a genuine Democrat. I believe in democracy. If that's your viewpoint, that lot won't. They'll chase you down the street. In fact, they'll probably rather see an Israeli flag at those protests than a trans flag. Yeah. So, but
it was all the usual catchphrases: signs saying Nazis off our streets, Manchester is anti-fascist, refugees welcome here, trans flags, free Palestine flags. Everything you can think of that the far left support was in that audience, counter-protest audience. All we were doing was saying we need to protect our children because many have been raped. I actually talked about, I've stopped over 15 girls and one boy being raped. I've had paedophiles arrested and paedophiles prosecuted. Not one of them was an Asian man.
No.
They're all white men. I want to protect children from whoever the offenders are. We've got offenders in the Catholic Church, Church of England, Hugh Edwards, news presenter, downloading porn, Jimmy Savile abusing kids, Gary Glitter abuse. This isn't a race thing. There's paedophiles in all groups and all communities, and we need to acknowledge that, and we need to protect children. In this particular case of the grooming gangs, we know for a fact it was predominantly Pakistani Pakistani heritage men, but not 100%. There's some white men in there and black men in there and other
There
people
were
in there.
Bangladeshis in there. The Oxford grooming gang, the first tier groomers, were from Eritrea.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
so
Somalis as well, yeah.
yeah. So, but my issue with that is, and this is where they struggle with us. I'm very clear on the nature of these grooming gangs, that they were protected because of the fear of community relations. He had that impact in that. Yeah. You know, if you can take it further, like I do, where you talk about the exchange for votes and all of that. But no one, not even Yvette Cooper, Jess Phillips, no one will disagree that the fear of race relations, the fear of upsetting our multicultural utopian aspiration, you know, is what prevented people from intervening. Yeah. And a hand in hand with that goes an acknowledgement that these were working class white girls. And I am of working class heritage. So, you know, if you want to use labels, I'm comfortable being classed as working class because that's the demographic that raised me. Yeah. And I have a loyalty to them. And I look at that and I think, if it was middle class kids, it would not have been happening.
Oh, no.
No chance. In the same way, if it was Muslim kids, it would not have been happening. Now, in the hierarchy of race, white working class girls in particular, and boys, they're right at the bottom.
Yeah, working class girls are second from bottom.
I say, boys are
White working class boys are the bottom.
Yeah, agreed. I completely. And I'm an anti-racist. So if you've trained me as an anti-racist, then why are you objecting to me actually, you know, delivering on what I've been raised to believe, which is, where you see injustice, you fight against it. Because essentially that's what anti-racism should be. Where you see injustice, where you see people who are treated derogatory, you know, in an inferior way because of the way in which we look at them, in the identity lens we see them through, then we have a responsibility to call that out and challenge that. And time after time after time in this country, the white working class have been marginalized, has been disenfranchised, and then manipulated into a place where the only people who will speak out on behalf of them are the far-right racists, you know, the genuine nutcases. And then it's great, isn't it? Because you can wash your hands off them even more. You know, you can, and that's why another of the reasons why I go to these events, because I have a responsibility. Yeah, and you are a white man. I am a brown-faced, you know, Muslim, but that's immaterial in the context of the conversations we're having. But unfortunately, in the world we live in, you know, there are certain audiences where it's useful to have me, and there are certain places where it's useful to have someone such as yourself. And that's what our teams need to be.
Exactly. Yeah. A just person is somebody who seeks justice regardless of anything else. So regardless, I find you a just person because you've put yourself out there. You can't be that popular within your own community to a certain extent.
Oh, there are people who have Buddha's issued fatwas on me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I prefer people, even if I don't disagree with them, I prefer people who are just as quick to criticize their own side, criticize their own people, their own neighbors, their own family, if they're doing something wrong. What I don't like is the hypocrisy of people who are quite happy criticizing legitimately other people, but yet within their group, within their friendship circle, it's okay for us to do it. And it's that hypocrisy that gets me all the time. And that's what I find in the far left. How the far left could have protested that demonstration. The far left should have been shouting, we don't want Nazis, and the way we don't get Nazis is we need to protect all our children. Yeah. And then the Nazis have nowhere to go then if we protect our children.
Well, I put an offer out to them. I said, listen, if you want to hold some form of rally about protecting children and you were to invite me, I would come and speak.
Me too.
Yeah, because my position here is simple. We need to win over as many people as possible because all of our children from all of our communities matter.